My name is Alex. I work at a small IT company. Don't lie. Trying to get through this with such an obvious lie, don't you have any sense as an adult? I skipped an executive meeting to help a college student. The next day, I was called to the CEO's office, and even though I honestly told the truth, he dismissed it as a lie and didn't listen to me at all. Sure, it sounded unrealistic, but he didn't have to assume I was lying from the beginning. You missed an important meeting, so you're fired. No matter how much I tried to explain, he wouldn't believe me, and eventually, I was told I was fired. I just helped someone, but my professional life was over. While I was overwhelmed by despair, John, the executive VP, burst into the CEO's office with a worried look. I'm a young department manager at this company. Since I was a kid, I was good at school and excelled in my studies, so I went straight to an elite college. I enjoyed my college life moderately and did the necessary minimum studying. I only had a few friends in college and didn't join any clubs or sports activities. I never had a girlfriend. While watching other students having a blast, I found more joy in studying and researching, so I focused on them. I recognized that I've always been a bit of a loner. Sure, I was good at studying and often praised for my abilities, but my personality was dark. I graduated at the top of my class and joined my current company. It's a small IT company. Because of my prestigious degree, I was hired under special conditions. Even here, I found more joy and fulfillment in work than in my personal life, so I dedicated myself to my job. Before I knew it, I had become an executive at a remarkably young age. But my personality remained dark as ever. Why am I so gloomy? One day, I was pondering this while riding on the train. I think I was a brighter child in elementary school. During lunch break, I would run around the playground with friends and visit their houses after school. I enthusiastically participated in sports days and other school activities, and I was more vibrant than I am now. I was often chosen as a leader for activities just because I was good at studying. Even then, I took it seriously and didn't shy away from the responsibility. Initially, I reluctantly accepted the leadership roles because I was nominated, but I ended up enjoying them. However, in middle and high school, my competitiveness escalated, and I studied with the determination to always be number one in tests. As this became the norm, getting perfect scores became my goal. I didn't want to lose. Not to others, but to the goals I set for myself. That's how I started prioritizing studying over socializing. During breaks, if I had time to chat, I'd rather study. If I had time to watch TV at home, I'd rather study. As a result, I gradually stopped communicating with people, and a dark personality took root. Being exceptionally good at studying, I received confessions from girls. But I always thought studying was more important than dating, so I always turned them down. Eventually, rumors started spreading that I had a girlfriend from another school, or that I was seen walking with an older college student. I focused solely on excelling academically and got a job at an IT company. I chose a small IT company because I felt my influence would be relatively greater. In terms of impacting society, a big company might be better. But if I joined a big company, I would just be one among thousands. One among thousands is almost like a cog in a machine. Even if I got promoted to section chief, manager, or director, there would still be countless others with similar positions in the group company. Even if you think you're leading, you're just one of many cogs. Rather than that, I felt it was more fulfilling to join a small to mid-sized company and work with the mindset of driving the company forward myself. That's why I joined my current company. I chose an IT company simply because I was good with numbers. I found immense joy in mastering math, which naturally made me strong with numbers. That's why I got a job at an IT company. It's rare for someone like me, who graduated from a prestigious college with top grades, to join a small or medium-sized company. I practically breezed through the entrance exams and interviews and received a job offer. After joining, I rose through the ranks at an unprecedented speed. Some colleagues respect me, but the majority are indifferent. I'm used to indifference. Because I was known for my gloomy personality. A dark personality doesn't get the spotlight. So, I was always in the corner of the classroom, studying diligently. I'm used to it. However, the problem is those who resent me. Older subordinates are especially prominent in this. They act extremely polite in front of me but complain behind my back. They call me a robot, saying I'm cold and unloving. Since I'm good at my job, they can't criticize my work. So, they attack my personality, which is a vague area. Our CEO is Mr. Smith, and the VP is his relative, Michael Smith. Michael's son, James Smith, is the head of HR. James is a few years older than me, and he's quite troublesome. He's someone who takes great pride in his meteoric rise through the ranks, even though it was clearly due to nepotism. He boasts about how unprecedented it was for someone so young to become a department head. But I broke his record by 2 years, making things difficult. At every opportunity, he makes snide remarks like, "Alex, the head of system development, thinks he's so great." I don't care about his sarcasm. However, using his position as head of HR to meddle in performance evaluations, and withholding important communications from me to hinder my work is unacceptable. After all, I'm a workaholic. Work is my top priority. I can't tolerate anyone who interferes with my work, which is my reason for living. So, I calmly tell him, acting childishly only degrades your own dignity. Or, do you realize that your actions harm the entire company? This makes James turn even redder and shout at me more. It's bothersome, so I ignore it after making my point. I just need to say my piece, and that's enough for me. With all this, I arrive at the station near the company. I get off the train. There's an executive meeting today. I want to be seated at least 10 minutes early to read through the materials. I head to the company by my usual route. Technically, I should transfer at this station and get off at the next stop, which is closer to the company. But I prefer to walk the last stretch instead of taking the train. It helps with my lack of exercise, and brisk walking in the morning and evening air feels good. I walk down the sidewalk. I take a side street. Taking the side street is actually faster. Then, I heard the screech of brakes. I turned around. I saw a bicycle colliding with a woman. The young man riding the bicycle quickly got up, but his leg was injured. The other woman remained on the ground, unmoving. I rushed over to her. She looked to be around 20 years old. She had long pigtails and very long bangs. They were so long that they covered her face. She wore round glasses, almost as big as the palm of a hand. But the glasses had been knocked off by the impact. I called out to her. Thinking she might have hit her head, I decided not to move her and just spoke to her. The woman soon let out an "ah." Behind me, the man on the bicycle sighed in relief, saying, "Thank goodness." The woman blinked a few times. I could see her eyelashes fluttering through her long bangs. I asked, "Are you okay?" She nodded yes. "I believe my body is functioning normally," she said, with a slight foreign accent. She tried to stand up but seemed very nearsighted and couldn't move without her glasses. I suggested, "You on the bike, you should go to the hospital. I'll call the police first. And you with the glasses, stay here. You should also go to the hospital. But we'll wait for the police first." A few minutes later, a police officer arrived. It was probably a police officer from a nearby police station. We talked with the officer, me, the man on the bike, and the woman with the glasses. Soon, a police car arrived. We were taken to the nearest police station for questioning. Before that, I asked if I could call my company. There was an executive meeting today. It would start in about 15 minutes. After a few rings, Aaron, one of James's followers, answered. He was also one of my colleagues. I knew he didn't think well of me and often complained about me to James. I thought it was annoying that he answered and said, "Is there anyone else around? There must be someone else." After all, it was just 15 minutes before the workday started. But Aaron said, "No one else is here. What do you need?" "I'll pass the message along." Reluctantly, I said, "I had an unavoidable accident and am now going to the police station. I'm just accompanying others, so don't worry. However, I might be late or miss the executive meeting. Please convey this before the meeting starts." That's all. I conveyed the message. Not wanting to keep the police waiting, I hung up the phone. Then I accompanied them to the police station. It took an incredibly long time. I was released around 11 a.m. Right after leaving the police station, I decided to take the young man and the woman to the hospital as a precaution. The executive meeting was already over. So, I decided it was a good time to use some of my vacation days and take the rest of the day off. More importantly, it didn't seem right to leave these injured people to go to the hospital alone. I called the company and took the day off until the evening using my paid leave. The young man on the bike, who only had scrapes and no serious injuries, was heading in the opposite direction, so I saw him off in a taxi. The woman with the glasses got into the taxi with me. She was quite helpless without her glasses. "Thank you for helping me. My name is Rachel. I'm Alex." "Alex. How do you spell that? And your last name is?" I thought about typing it on my phone to show her. However, I hesitated, thinking it would be hard for her to see without her glasses. So, I considered giving her my business card. But then, I thought it might seem like I was demanding gratitude. While I was considering what to do. "Don't you have a business card? Here's my card." "Oh, you can throw it away after checking the spelling." Rachel held the card happily. "Please let me keep it. I'm a student, so I don't have business cards." I thought she had an unusual aura. But her accent suggested she might have grown up in another country in a different culture. Since I consider myself quirky too, meeting someone a bit offbeat doesn't bother me. I waited at the hospital while she got examined. She said she lived alone and her parents were abroad. Without me, she wouldn't be able to get home without her glasses. Thinking that, I reluctantly stayed with her. When I asked if she wanted a sandwich or a bread for lunch, she said both, so I got her both. I thought it was an unbalanced meal, so I added a salad and milk, and she ate it all up. I ate a vegetable sandwich beside her. Her test results came out in the evening. Since there were no issues, I made sure she got into a taxi. She didn't have any money, so I paid. I told her not to worry about paying me back and saw her off. Then I returned to the office. By the time I got back, it was already 5 p.m. The company's regular hours ended at 6 p.m., so there was less than an hour left. I decided to report my tardiness for the day, so I headed to the HR department. I had to report to James. I didn't like him, but it was his responsibility, so I had no choice. "James, I apologize for missing the executive meeting today." I said it formally. Then James said something surprising. "Honestly, who do you think you are, skipping the meeting without notice?" "What?" I widened my eyes. "Skipping without notice?" I immediately realized what happened. Either Aaron didn't report it on purpose or he was conspiring with James. I had anticipated this, but I could only blame myself for not taking more precautions. I contacted Aaron in our department 15 minutes before work started. I didn't hear anything about it. Then let's bring Aaron here. Don't bother calling Aaron over for such nonsense. This reaction confirmed that James was in on it with Aaron. I made my decision. It's not trivial. Compared to his many breaks, this is minor. I'll call him right away. "Hey, wait." I immediately called for Aaron. "What is it?" He responded to me with a haughty attitude. Even though I outranked him, he still acted like we were just peers. "I'm busy, so make it quick." "Oh, James, good to see you. Thanks for the treat the other day." "Aaron, I called you at 8:45 this morning to report my tardiness, right?" "Huh? What are you talking about?" There it was. I sighed at his blatantly malicious response. "See, Alex. This proves you're lying. I'll report this up. You skipped the executive meeting without permission, after all. Expect to face consequences." At this point, there was nothing I could do. I gave up on them and got back to work. Checking the phone records would be quick, so I thought about doing that myself, but today was a no overtime day. On this once-a-month day, the office systems shut down at 6 p.m. I had no choice but to go home. The next day, I was in the CEO's office. "You know why you've been called in today, right?" Mr. Smith usually had a gentle demeanor towards me. He loved the prestige of having a top graduate from a famous college and a young department head as his ace. But today, he looked furious. "Is this about being late yesterday?" "Yes." Why didn't you report it? I called at 8:45. Should we analyze the data? Enough with the excuses. There's no record of anyone receiving your call. That's the proof. I glanced at James, who had joined us. Would analyzing the data be a problem for you, James? James was at a loss for words. Then he looked away. Don't go falsely accusing Aaron. If you analyze the data and he's innocent, what will you do then? That's defamation. You're falsely accusing me right now. Why is it okay for you to accuse me but not Aaron? I remained calm. James became more agitated. Shut up. Enough with the backtalk. Calm down, James. Alex, it's an undeniable fact that you skipped the meeting without notice. Do you acknowledge that? Except for the part about being without notice, yes. I missed the meeting. Alright, then let's hear your reason. I already mentioned this to Aaron, but after getting off the train, I saw an accident between a cyclist and a pedestrian. I was the only witness. So I accompanied the police and answered their questions. Which do you think is more important, your job or others? Michael and James attacked me as if they had caught me in a serious wrongdoing. Was the person you helped a beautiful woman or something? The pedestrian was a woman. Whether she was beautiful or not is subjective. Got it. You just followed that woman. What's more important to you, women or your job? We don't need people who neglect their job. What's more important to you? If there's an injured person in front of me, I prioritize them. I thought I did the right thing. If I were in an accident and passers-by ignored me, I would hate it. Treat others as you want to be treated. This is my policy and something I consider basic human decency. Let's fire this guy. He has no loyalty to the company. I heard rumors that he's trying to leak company data, Mr. Smith. I thought this was definitely a fabrication by Michael. Are they really trying this hard to kick me out? Have I been working hard for a company with people like this? I started feeling like all my efforts had been for nothing. I've heard that too. Mr. Smith, this guy is smart enough to forge phone records. He'll bring a fake record of a call at 8:45. You shouldn't trust anything he says. Mr. Smith had initially been saying, and other noises, but he seemed to be swayed by the constant accusations from the side. Alright, you're fired for missing an important meeting. I was fired. Since I was now terminated, my access to all company systems and computers was revoked. They probably didn't want me to verify the phone records. Well, it didn't matter anymore. I decided to use my remaining paid leave. In effect, I had until tomorrow to come to the office. I was told to complete the handover and take my personal belongings today and tomorrow. Aaron would take over as head of system development. So, Alex, how do you feel now? Aaron asked me quietly. I kept a blank expression and continued the handover. Too upset to speak, huh? Ha ha ha. Stop wasting time, Aaron. We need to complete the handover today and tomorrow. Shut up. You're fired. I'm the department head now. Address me properly. I won't be calling your name ever again. I spent the day like that. The next morning, I was in the CEO's office for paperwork. I heard footsteps approaching from a distance. Then there was a loud knock on the CEO's office door. Who's making all that noise? It was John. Mr. Smith. Look at the news. Ha! Both Mr. Smith and I were puzzled, but he turned on the TV at John's insistence. On the screen was the woman with the long pigtails and glasses. She was introduced as Rachel Johnson, a genius programmer with an IQ of 200. I had heard of Rachel Johnson, a college student in the US with an IQ of 200. Rachel Johnson founded a company at 11, and now handled over 90% of our company's core systems. She was also known for never showing her face. Being a super genius, she didn't attend normal educational institutions. Thus, she had no classmates. She was now in college, having skipped several grades. I was stunned to see her on TV. The girl I helped was on the screen. They had to reschedule the press conference by a day. I apologize for any inconvenience. I had an accident. It wasn't serious. But my glasses got broken, so I had to wait for new ones. Glasses don't fix themselves once scratched, you know. She still had her extremely long bangs. She was wearing new glasses. Since Rachel had never appeared in public before, all the media outlets were focused on her. I met someone very kind. I'll keep his name confidential, but he works at a company called K. He's a department head named Mr. A. Thanks to him, even though my glasses were broken, I made it home safely. Anyway, let's get to the main topic. From that point on, the questions were general, about work, the company, and why she had decided to show herself this time. Listening to the press conference, Mr. Smith completely changed his attitude. Well, Alex, I believed in you. It seems you were really late because you were helping someone. Impressive. And you helped none other than Rachel Johnson, the CEO of our major client. Truly remarkable. Right, Alex? Aren't I no longer a department head? Of course, we'll forget about the firing. We owe a lot to Ms. Johnson, so you, as the company's representative, will continue to. I decline. I packed my things and left right then and there. Later, Rachel came to the company to thank me and repay the money. Upon learning that I had been fired, she announced that her company would cease all dealings with K Company. She also stated that they would no longer provide any systems. Rachel's reasoning was clear. A company that values meetings over helping people? I can't align with such values, so it's impossible for me to continue working with them. That's what she said. Rachel then asked for my address and came to visit me. I didn't expect her, so I answered the door in my loungewear. Excuse me. I'll go change. Please wait a moment. I begged for 3 minutes at the entrance, but she said, my attire is similar, so it's fine, and entered anyway. It's inappropriate for a woman to be alone in a man's apartment. Can we talk somewhere else? When I suggested this, she replied, then let's talk in the entranceway. So, Rachel and I sat facing each other on the hardwood floor of the entranceway. What is this? It's a strange scene, but whatever. It would be ruder to invite her further inside. Here, I'm returning the money from the other day. Rachel handed me an envelope of cash. It's okay, really. I tried to return it. But Rachel insisted, and after going back and forth 3 times, I finally accepted it. I heard you got fired. Yes. It seems you got into trouble because of me. Was it trouble? No, I think it was a good opportunity for me. I never realized how awful that company was. I don't want to work hard for such a terrible place anymore. It's not right to speak ill of someone else's workplace, but I feel the same way. Rachel agreed. Her outfit was mismatched again today, just like the other day. Well, I have to make sure I choose the right company next time. And I'll make sure my subordinates are more careful in selecting partners. We both have lessons to learn. We laughed together. By the way, Alex. Yes, Rachel? Are you an engineer? Yes. Are you good? I hesitated at this question. Am I supposed to say this myself? Well, I majored at a well-known college in the US, so I think I'm considered good here. I see. Then would you like to take the entrance exam for my company? Entrance exam? I was caught completely off guard. I learned that Rachel had come to the US for the final interview of this entrance exam. The final interview is next Sunday. So, Alex, you need to pass the 1st to 4th exams by then. Thus, I had to take the written and practical exams at a rapid pace. Although it had been a while since I took an exam, it wasn't too difficult for me. However, it was a top-tier company. The content was more challenging than any other entrance exam I had ever taken. In the final interview, Rachel and I talked about our favorite colors of marshmallows, and I eventually got accepted. I wondered if such an interview was sufficient. But they had already assessed my abilities in the previous exams and understood my character well enough. I officially became an employee of a top IT company. And then, Rachel and I were walking along the beach at night. She wanted to thank me for helping her, and I gratefully accepted. We had dinner in a private restaurant room and were now strolling along the shore. Hey, Alex, she said. Yes, Ms. Johnson? Teach me about the States. Teach me how to interact with people. Teach me about fun things. Suddenly, Rachel stopped and said this to me. I was taken aback. What do you mean? About the States? I've lived here a long time, but I don't think I know enough to teach someone. As for interacting with people, I'm not particularly good at it myself. Fun things, fun things. I fell silent. I didn't understand her intention. I want you to stay with me. That's all. With you, I can learn everything about the States, interact with people, and have fun. Is this a confession? In Rachel's way? Realizing this, I quickly shook my head. She mentioned she was a college student who skipped grades. Her age is probably in her teens. On the other hand, I was in my 30s. This is not acceptable. I took a deep breath. Ms. Johnson. Please just call me Rachel. It feels odd otherwise. All right, Rachel. I'm a man in my 30s. You're still a teenager, right? Yes, physically. The standard is physical age, so you're a teenager. I see. That means we can't have a close relationship yet. Do you understand? Is being friends also not allowed? Friends are fine. All my friends are adults. In that case, it might be okay. Then, until I become an adult, you'll be my friend, right? Until you become an adult. I understood what she meant. When I become an adult, will you propose to me? She said with a smile. Propose? I was startled. Yes. By then, I'll make sure you like me enough to want to propose. Oh, this won't do. Rachel and I were destined to meet. That's how I felt. It was the first time in my life. My heart boiled over with such intense emotion. We remained friends for 5 years and then got married. Now, I am a father of 3. When Rachel took care of her appearance, she had a very beautiful face. While I'm not superficial and value inner qualities over looks, knowing Rachel from the time she was seen as quirky or unique makes me appreciate her even more now. Even though she was a genius, it wasn't pleasant for me to see her viewed through a strange filter. But I loved the old Rachel too. Both versions are adorable and both are Rachel. No matter what kind of Rachel she becomes in the future, I always want to be her biggest supporter. And the 3 children Rachel and I had. They are my treasures. Having them gave me more reasons to work hard. Life looks rosy now. I want to continue working hard to ensure that our family lives happily together. My name is Sam. I work at a miscellaneous goods manufacturer. The company I work for isn't very large, it's what you'd generally call a small to medium-sized enterprise. Though it's about the size of a small factory, I applied to this company straight out of college. I had a compelling reason for wanting to join this company. I've loved miscellaneous goods since my school days, and I'd often found myself stopping by stores whenever I saw one. Most of my allowance and part-time job earnings would go towards buying these items. Sam, you bought another quirky item. What is it this time? This was being sold in a corner of the store, but it's amazing. As I kept doing this, my friends started showing interest in the items I bought. I'd often buy obscure products that weren't yet popular and tell my friends about their appeal. Some of the items I bought, which were still unknown at the time, later became hits on social media and earned me the nickname Gadget Guru. I took pride in that nickname because it showed my love for these goods. Among all these products, my favorite ones were made by the manufacturer I now work for. The company's size may not be large, but its hit products are sold in over 1,000 stores nationwide, including major chain stores. They were apparently products that our president, Mr. Smith, came up with. They probably aligned with the trends of the times. The products sold out quickly as a result. I joined the company initially as a product planner, but no ideas other than Mr. Smith's ever get approved. There are plenty of great ideas proposed by other employees, but none of them get approved. Because no one has surpassed Mr. Smith's track record, even if it's unreasonable, no one dares to oppose him. Mr. Smith, what do you think of this product design? Sam, did I assign you to design? You know Emily handles that. If you have time, get back to your tasks. I'm sorry. I understand. I graduated from a specialized design school and love coming up with product ideas and designs. But no matter how much I appeal to Mr. Smith, I never get the chance. There's a veteran woman named Emily in the company who handles all the designs as per Mr. Smith's instructions. Emily is a gentle older woman with great skills. She's excellent at bringing Mr. Smith's ideas to life. I often talk with Emily during breaks, and we enjoy brainstorming design ideas together. I wish we could work together, Sam, but Mr. Smith is a bit stubborn. It's a shame you're doing picking work just because you're a guy. Even though you love to design. Yeah, but I'll keep trying so that one day we can work together. That's the spirit. I'm rooting for you. As Emily said, I'm not allowed to do any planning or design work. Instead, I focus on shipping, picking tasks, and sales support. Even though I joined as a planner and salesperson, I can't give up hope that someday I'll get a chance. Every night, I go home and work on product designs, carrying them around in my work bag. However, none of my submissions have ever been accepted, nor even looked at. Amidst these repetitive days, my friends from design school invited me to a gathering, and we met up for drinks on a weekend. I spent days working on a design, only for it to get rejected. It's disheartening after all that effort. I kept revising and resubmitting mine, and it finally got accepted. You just have to keep pushing. Such conversations were common. My friends, now at different companies, seemed busy but fulfilled. Sam, how about you? You looked so happy when you got that job offer. I'm doing all right, I guess. Unable to say that I'm not doing what I want, I down my drink to cover up. I felt out of place being there. When I got hired by a company that makes my favorite products, I was overjoyed to the point of tears. My friends here today celebrated with me when I received the job offer from my first choice company. But my current reality is far from the ideal life I had envisioned. My design ideas pile up, unseen by anyone, and remain sadly tucked away in my bag. The gap between my hopeful past self and my current situation makes me clench my fist under the table. I was just filled with frustration. One day, I was sent to a meeting with a major chain store that I had often visited privately for years. Usually, I'd feel a bit lighter on my feet, but today I felt unusually heavy. Today's meeting was to pitch a product idea from Mr. Smith. It's not that I dislike going to these meetings. On the contrary, being involved in the process of creating and pitching a product brings me joy. Previously, I had taken one of Mr. Smith's ideas to a meeting, but his taste is quite unique and often not very good. However, since it was his idea, no one could challenge or even suggest alternatives. Even when I took such products to meetings, the buyers' reactions were always negative. When I returned to the company to report this, Mr. Smith would get very upset. My product is undoubtedly great. Isn't it your fault that it didn't get accepted? With all due respect, Mr. Smith, while this product is in line with current trends, by the time it's produced and on the market, the trend might have shifted and there would be no demand. Are you saying my product is bad? Sam, since when did you think you could offer opinions to me? If you have time to come up with uncreative designs, you should work on improving your sales skills. Mr. Smith's sharp gaze only intensified at my words. Since then, he started targeting me. Even when I submitted requested documents, he wouldn't look at them and would demand revisions, finding fault with everything I did. He'd assign me unnecessary tasks, sometimes giving me more work than I could finish in a day, leading to late nights. I tried to appeal to him about this. Mr. Smith, it's really tough to finish this by the end of the day. You're just incompetent. If you can't finish it, stay late and get it done. He never listened to my pleas. Emily, the design specialist, was also concerned for me. But even she couldn't stand up to Mr. Smith. Eventually, I lost my brakes and no longer had time to talk with her. When I stepped out of the company, the fresh air was a relief. But I didn't feel optimistic about today's meeting and was quickly overcome with a sense of dread. I decided to take a shortcut through a one-way street. With fewer cars and traffic lights, and hardly any people, I thought it might help clear my head. Just then, a loud crash behind me made me turn around. A car had collided with a telephone pole. I'd never witnessed an accident before, and with no one else around, I panicked. but when I saw no one emerging from the car, I ran towards it. I couldn't see the driver's face due to the airbags, but I saw a woman slumped over in the driver's seat. I checked the back seat and found she was the only one in the car. I immediately opened the door and spoke to her. "Are you okay? Can you hear me?" She slowly raised herself and responded, "I'm okay." I blacked out while driving. Relieved that she was conscious, I sighed. I should call the police, but I can't find my phone." She seemed disoriented, likely from the accident. I quickly reassured her. "It's okay. I'll call the police. Here, have some water, I haven't opened it yet. It'll help you calm down." I handed her the water I had bought earlier, and since I was the only witness, I called the police and an ambulance from my phone. She seemed calmer by the time I finished the call and bowed deeply to me. "Thank you for helping me. My name is Natalie. I think I was sleep deprived from working on a college report. Thank you for everything. May I ask your name?" Natalie seemed to be a college student, and I couldn't just leave her alone, so I introduced myself. "I'm glad you're okay, Natalie. I'm Sam. Sorry, I need to make a quick work call while we wait for the police." She nodded emphatically and said, "That's fine." So I called the client I was supposed to meet. After explaining the situation, they understood and agreed to reschedule. Next, I called my company, and the receptionist connected me to Mr. Smith. "Mr. Smith, I'm sorry. I encountered an accident on my way to the meeting and am currently waiting for the police. I've explained the situation to the client, and they've agreed to reschedule. Given the circumstances, it might take me some time to return to the office." After explaining the situation concisely, an unexpected response came through the phone. "Sam, are you kidding me? Do you realize how much revenue this meeting could generate? Being late because of an accident you encountered? Rescheduling without permission is unacceptable. You should have ignored the accident." "But Mr. Smith, I couldn't just ignore someone in need. That's inhumane." Despite my attempt to reason, he had no intention of listening and shouted over me, "I won't tolerate lateness. You're fired." His voice was deafening, and with a loud click, the call ended abruptly. In an instant, I found myself unemployed. Fired. Staring blankly at the silent phone, I was stunned. Natalie, who had witnessed everything, approached with a worried expression. "I'm sorry, I overheard the call. It's my fault, isn't it?" Her eyes were filled with tears as she apologized. "No, it's not a problem at all. Leaving someone in need would be the real issue." I tried to smile reassuringly as I spoke to her. The conflict with Mr. Smith had been ongoing, and he had been targeting me ever since our earlier disputes. Given the situation, this might actually be a good opportunity to move on. Staying in that company wouldn't let me do what I truly wanted. Natalie seemed to think my words were just to make her feel better. "I'm really sorry that you got caught up in my accident." She bowed deeply again and, after a brief moment, took out her phone to make a call. "Dad, it's Natalie. I was in an accident." It seemed she was calling her parents. Not wanting to eavesdrop, I considered stepping away, but the police arrived and began their investigation. By then, Natalie had finished her call and was calmly speaking with the police. The paramedics also arrived, and while they checked on Natalie, it was confirmed she wasn't injured. The investigation went smoothly without any issues. Since they were arranging a tow truck for her car, I decided to stay with her until it arrived. Just then, several luxury cars began to pull up in front of us. A man hurriedly got out of one of the cars. "Natalie, are you okay?" "Yes, I'm fine. This gentleman helped me." The man, clearly worried, rushed over to Natalie. I was taken aback by the sudden turn of events. Unlike me, Natalie calmly explained the situation to the man. Unable to fully grasp what was happening, I stood there in shock as the man turned to me and bowed deeply. "Thank you for helping Natalie. My name is." He expressed his gratitude and handed me his business card. Caught off guard, I fumbled to retrieve a business card from my bag, but in my haste, I accidentally spilled its contents all over the ground. Among the scattered items were not only the documents I was supposed to submit but also the product ideas and designs I had painstakingly worked on night after night. I'm so sorry. As I knelt to pick up the scattered papers, another hand appeared in my view. A smaller hand than mine started helping me pick up the scattered papers. It was Natalie. Is this everything? These products were designed by you? They're wonderful. She smiled as she handed me the gathered papers. With a sweet smile, she said my ideas were wonderful. The fact that she appreciated my work filled me with joy, and I couldn't help but grip the stack of papers a bit tighter. These are designs that have never been approved, let alone seen by anyone at my company. They're practically just a hobby at this point. Thank you for your kind words. It means a lot to me. I see. Natalie looked sad as I explained. Even though I tried to smile, perhaps my face showed how pathetic I felt. The products I had thought about daily might never see the light of day now that I had been fired. The thought made my chest ache. As I packed up my papers, Natalie and the man were discussing something. When I looked up, Natalie walked over to me. Sam, if you don't mind, I'd like to thank you. Do you have some time after this? I had been fired by Mr. Smith. I had no work left to do. I had plenty of time. Even though I had many problems to deal with. I didn't need any thanks, but I felt it would be rude to refuse Natalie, who was looking at me so earnestly. I don't need any thanks, but I have plenty of time, so sure. Her face lit up at my response, and I found myself smiling too. So, I decided to follow her. The place Natalie brought me to was, surprisingly, the company where I work. Or rather, my former workplace since I'd been fired. Before I could ask why we were here, Natalie confidently walked into the building. Sam, where's the meeting room? Still unable to ask her anything, I guided her to the meeting room. The employees stared at us, wondering what was going on. When we reached the meeting room, she knocked briefly and entered before a response came. I had no idea who was inside, and hurried to follow her, only to be met with an unexpected sight. Mr. Smith was there, talking to an unfamiliar man. But that wasn't all. Mr. Smith was bowing his head looking scared. The man noticed Natalie and me immediately and addressed her. Natalie, are you okay? Dad. I had the paramedics check me out and I'm fine. Thanks to Sam here. It turns out the man was Natalie's father. But I felt like I had seen him somewhere before. Where had I seen him before? As I pondered this, Natalie's father bowed his head to me. Sam, right? Thank you for helping my daughter. I'm so grateful for your kindness. This is a debt I can never fully repay. Thank you. I just did what anyone would do. I'm glad your daughter is safe. The man gave me a kind smile. Not everyone would think it was their duty. You're a kind person, Sam. I can assure you of that. Natalie nodded vigorously beside him. His words, spoken with such conviction, made my face flush with warmth. To hide my embarrassment, I took out my business card. Let me formally introduce myself. I'm Sam. I used to handle product planning and sales for miscellaneous goods at this company. I started to introduce myself, but I suddenly found myself at a loss for words. Having been fired, I no longer had the right to use the business card with this company's name on it. I considered lowering my hand holding the card, wondering if it would be disrespectful, and as I hesitated, I remained frozen in a bow. A hand on my shoulder snapped me out of my daze, and I looked up. You don't need to be so formal. I'm David Williams, Natalie's father and the president of the company you were supposed to visit today. Nice to meet you. His words brought back my memory. Yes, he was the president of the large household goods chain I was supposed to visit today. I hadn't had a conversation with him before, but I had seen him a few times. I never expected him to be the president though. When the accident happened, I remembered seeing the same company name on the business card of the man who got out of the car to help me. However, in the midst of the commotion, I hadn't fully confirmed it. I couldn't believe the president of the store I frequented was standing before me, and I stiffened. Dad, when I had an accident, Sam was the one who helped me immediately. It was a quiet street, so there were no other witnesses. But he called the police and ambulance for me while I was panicking. He even cancelled his plans to visit your company to stay with me and make sure everything went smoothly. Natalie glanced at me and then continued speaking to Mr. Williams. But because of that, Sam ended up getting fired from his job. Mr. Williams listened to her words and turned towards the shrinking Mr. Smith. Getting fired for being late to a meeting because you helped someone after witnessing an accident? What a commendable company policy. Though Mr. Williams's tone was cheerful, his eyes were not smiling at all. Breaking into a cold sweat from Mr. Williams's sarcastic remark, Mr. Smith hesitantly opened his mouth to speak. No, I only reprimanded Sam for his attitude towards his work. I never intended to actually fire him. Encountering an accident and responding correctly is something I admire in an employee. That's why I entrusted the meeting with your company to him. As I thought about how quickly Mr. Smith came up with excuses, Natalie stepped forward before I could say anything. Sorry to interrupt, but I overheard you talking to Sam on the phone. You said to ignore the accident. After finishing his excuse and feeling a brief sense of relief, Mr. Smith turned his gaze towards Natalie and tensed up. However, she didn't stop. Sam told you he couldn't just ignore it. And I distinctly heard you say the word fired in response. That's how I remember it. Well, that is. Mr. Smith had no words to respond to Natalie's statement and appeared visibly uneasy. His face was not just sweaty but completely pale. Mr. Williams, who had been quietly listening, nodded slightly and turned to Mr. Smith. So, Sam is currently without a job, correct? And from what I hear, he's quite talented in product planning and design. Yet your company hasn't given him the opportunity to showcase his skills. Is that correct? Being suddenly praised for my abilities made me feel a bit uneasy. Mr. Smith, who was just as uneasy for a different reason, forced a smile. Well, we've been having him work on basic tasks as preparation for future projects. Mr. Smith's words brought back memories of all the harassment I had endured under him. Basic tasks? That was far from the truth. I joined this company because I admired its miscellaneous goods. I graduated from design school and joined this company with the intention of applying everything I learned here. I've been happy to do picking and sales support work, believing that one day I would be involved in planning and design. Gathering my courage, I addressed Mr. Smith's remarks. Sam. Mr. Smith glared at me, as if warning me not to say anything more. But I was no longer afraid. As the president of a company that had fired me, Mr. Smith was no longer someone I had to answer to. But you haven't even listened to my proposals or those of other employees. You reject our plans without even reviewing them. And every document I've submitted has been returned with corrections. For 4 years, I've been doing basic tasks. Not getting a single opportunity to work on planning or design. Is that all considered preparation? I poured out all my frustrations in one breath. I was no longer afraid of Mr. Smith. Mr. Williams, who had been watching the situation, smiled at me. Sam, I'd like to see the designs Natalie mentioned. Would that be all right? Yes, of course. In a hurry, I pulled out a stack of papers from my bag and handed them to him. Mr. Williams skimmed through them, nodding as he went. Just as Natalie said, you have a lot of talent. So, Sam, with no obstacles in your way, would you consider joining us as a product planning and design specialist? We not only source products from manufacturers but also develop our own original items. We welcome talented individuals like you. Mr. Williams extended his hand to me as he spoke. Mr. Smith, the president of my former company, seemed like he wanted to say something, but I cut him off by shaking Mr. Williams's hand. Yes. I'd be honored. And so, I began working in product planning and design at the large household goods chain managed by Mr. Williams. As I started the job, I realized that product design was more challenging and required more knowledge than I had anticipated. Understanding the differences in materials and their costs and properties was crucial. Even the same product could have different limitations depending on the manufacturing process. Without this knowledge, it was impossible to design safe and user-friendly products. A design that looked good on screen might turn out to be flawed when the sample was produced. For instance, plastics like polyethylene and acrylic resin have different strengths, transparency, and costs. You need to consider these factors in your design. This design could cause injuries to customers on the backside due to the manufacturing process. You need to modify it to avoid that. I received such feedback on my designs daily. I was learning new things that I couldn't have experienced at my previous company. It was tough, but I found it enjoyable and rewarding. Previously, my days were consumed by work with no time to spare. But now I found myself looking at products from a new perspective during shopping trips. I started to notice how things were made and what materials were used. I also began to appreciate the small details and design tweaks more often. I would jot down these observations in a notebook and use them to brainstorm new product ideas. While my life had become more work-centric, each day was filled with new discoveries, making it very enjoyable. Furthermore, my new role in product planning and design led to more opportunities to visit overseas factories. There are many things you don't notice when working solely in the US, such as the cultural and mindset differences, as well as numerous business opportunities. I even had the chance to be present when my previous company came to propose products. Mr. Smith, the president of my former company, came personally to make the proposal. We would appreciate Sam's feedback on our proposed products from a design perspective. It was an awkward moment as the person who once looked down on me was now facing me in a reversed role. Since I joined this company, the annual average sales of the products I designed have already exceeded the annual revenue of my previous company. So Mr. Smith might think he lost out on a big opportunity. He looked a bit regretful. Of course, I judged the proposal fairly, without letting personal feelings interfere. Actually, Emily informed me that since my incident, Mr. Smith has become more subdued and is now more willing to listen to others' opinions. Mr. Smith used to listen carefully to his employees' opinions when developing products that built his track record. His overconfidence led to the situation, but he might bring better products in the future, created collaboratively with his team. Not as a product created solely by Mr. Smith, but as one made collaboratively by the whole company. Sure, there were challenges, but it was a company that produced the miscellaneous goods I loved. Even though things turned out differently, I wanted to strive to do my best alongside them. In addition to work, my personal life was also flourishing. The accident led to me dating Natalie. After graduating from college, Natalie joined the same company as a sales assistant. Though we worked in different departments, we would often return home together or have dinner, making every day feel more colorful. Natalie, who had recognized and praised my design work, continued to support me. One fond memory was when I took her to a household goods store for our date, and she burst into laughter. "You really love household goods, don't you, Sam?" "I love them too, so I'll go along with you as long as you want." Natalie never criticized me, always smiling and staying by my side. Mr. Williams has been supportive both professionally and personally, and I'm fortunate to have great colleagues. At my previous company, everyone avoided associating with me since I was singled out. Now, if I run into any problems, my colleagues immediately offer help, and they give me valuable advice to get my ideas approved. Though we are all competitors, we are also teammates, and they celebrated with me when my first project was accepted. The change in my work environment has also made it enjoyable to attend gatherings with my old classmates, which used to feel uncomfortable. When they said, "Your atmosphere has changed," I ended up sharing my journey with them. "Sam, you changed jobs? You look much happier now. Sorry for the way we acted before. If anything comes up, make sure to talk to us." My friends listened earnestly to my story, appreciating my experiences and offering their support. They were angry about what happened at my previous company, and they were surprised but happy for me when I told them about my new job. I learned a lot from conversations I previously couldn't even participate in. We learned from and encouraged each other. I realized I should have talked to them sooner. They are important friends and professional rivals to me after all. They had been watching over me even when they were busy. Thanks to the support of those around me, I am now leading a fulfilling life. I've worked hard over the years. There were times I thought no one would ever appreciate my efforts. But there are always people who notice. I want to always remember this sense of gratitude. When you make positive changes in yourself, your environment and the people around you change as well. While striving for improvement every day, I am now enjoying my life to the fullest. My name is Ted. I'm currently single and working at a company. Today, I came to a hotel for my high school reunion. But then, people with low incomes can never afford a car. The one arrogantly making this statement behind me is my classmate, Alex. Alex looked at my face and burst into loud laughter, without noticing the person approaching from behind him. I grew up in a single-parent household. It was me, my brother, and our mom living in an old house. My father passed away from illness shortly after my brother was born. I hardly have any memories of my father. They say he was a frail man who couldn't work much. Because of that, although both my parents worked, our family was poor. I think it was also because of my father's medical expenses. Then I was born, and my brother was born. My brother was also weak and spent most of the year in the hospital. So, my mom was always at the hospital. She would make my breakfast early in the morning, drop me off at daycare, and then go to the hospital. After that, she would work part-time, stop by the hospital on her way back, pick me up from daycare, and go home. She'd do the housework, sleep, wake up, and repeat this every day. That was her routine. By the time I was old enough to understand, this was normal to me, so I never felt lonely. I thought I had to make sure my brother, Chris, didn't feel lonely because he had a weak body. "Mom, I'm okay. Chris would be sad if he's lonely. He's going through a tough time, so please be with him." I used to say this to my mom a lot. And it seems my words made her feel forgiven. Even when I started elementary school, our routine didn't change much. One thing did change: the daycare used to keep me until 8 p.m., but the after-school program only kept me until 6 p.m. I stayed at the after-school program until 6 p.m., then went home with my key, turned on the lights in the dark house, did my homework, and waited for my mom to come back. At first, I thought about cooking, cleaning, or bringing in the laundry. But after I fell off the porch while bringing in the laundry, my mom told me not to do anything. I thought I was keeping it a secret. I tried to act like nothing happened when she came home. But when she saw the bandages on my scraped knee and palms, she immediately knew. She rushed to me with a tearful face. "Ted, if something happened to you, I wouldn't be able to go on. It's nothing. I'm sorry, Mom. I just wanted to help you. You've already done so much. It's okay, alright? I'll take care of the laundry. Just promise me you won't try to climb and bring in the laundry from the balcony, okay? Okay. I'll help when I get bigger and can reach it. Thank you. Maybe when you're in 4th grade?" She patted my head. In truth, I wanted to cook and wait for her to come home, tired from work. But using the stove and knives alone was still too dangerous for me. I thought I could handle cleaning, so I tried using the vacuum cleaner, but I was told it was too soon for that too. Instead, I started using a hand mop for cleaning. Mom always praised me, saying, "Ted, it's a big help that you clean up." The same went for studying. I was good at it. I wasn't particularly smart. But spending so much time alone or at the after-school program naturally meant I had a lot of time to do homework and study. So, I completed my homework perfectly, and in my spare time, I played with math drills and even studied Spanish. As a result, my grades improved. Mom praised me when she saw my test results. "Ted, you're really hardworking." I was happy to be called smart, but my mother always praised me by saying, "You're a hard worker." I was pleased with that. I was thrilled that she acknowledged my effort and noticed me, so I was always close to her. However, our time together was short. In the mornings, she always left the house earlier than me. After I started elementary school and became more independent, she took on an early morning job. I always reheated the breakfast she made, and her handwritten note would send me off with, "Have a great day." After school, I went to the after-school program, and at 6 p.m., I headed home. I'd clean the house and wait. Mom never came home before 8 p.m. I'd take a bath, study, and wait. She'd come home after 8 p.m., we'd have dinner, and by 10 p.m., we'd go to bed. I loved holding my mom's hand. Even without words, holding her hand gave me a sense of warmth. When I felt lonely, I'd secretly grasp one of her handkerchiefs hanging out to dry. I'd tell myself to endure because I was the big brother. Chris was having a hard time. Chris couldn't even go to school. I wasn't suffering, and I could go to school. I felt grateful for that. So, I shouldn't feel lonely. I shouldn't trouble mom. I'm the big brother, so I'll be fine. By the time I was in middle grades, I could bring in the laundry and handle the vacuum cleaner. I started with making simple vegetable salads and gradually began cooking more complex meals. I was happy about that. Mom repeatedly instructed me on handling knives and using the stove, emphasizing the need for extreme caution. Everyone starts using these things eventually. You might get small cuts at first, but avoid major injuries at all costs. Be overly cautious. All right? Please. She gently told me. I was thrilled that she trusted me. This made me work even harder on chores and studying. By the time I was in upper elementary, I could handle most household tasks. This significantly eased Mom's burden, and I was incredibly happy to contribute to the family. I also started doing the grocery shopping, naturally learning how to save money. Before payday, money would get tight, so we'd sometimes get by with bean sprouts. When we were low on rice, we'd stretch it out as porridge. I always thought about how to make meals for my mom and me as delicious as possible. I kept studying, and by the time I entered junior high, I was always at the top of my class. But there was always one guy who made fun of me. His name was Alex. This guy had been picking on me since first grade. "Hey, Ted. You don't have this, do you?" He'd wave the latest game console in front of me. "No, I don't." "And aren't we not supposed to bring games to school?" "Shut up. It's fine as long as you don't get caught. Is your life any fun just studying all the time? You're such a boring guy. I'm going to a party soon." "A party? Ever been to one?" "No, but I'm happy as I am. Just leave me alone." I wasn't exactly antisocial, though. There were other kids from poor families in my class. And kids whose parents both worked and stayed at the after-school program until the end like me. We had an unspoken understanding, and I played with them using the toys at the after-school program, so I never felt sad. "Hey, have you ever been to karaoke?" "No, I haven't. Karaoke is amazing. There's a screen on the wall. Did you know that? And there's a phone in the room where you can place orders. And when you order, the staff brings it right away. Isn't that awesome?" "Yeah, that sounds great. You want to go too, right?" "No, I'm good. You're such a boring guy. I'm offering to treat you. Don't you secretly want to go?" "Just say, 'Alex, treat me.' I don't need it. Anyway, I'm going to the after-school program, so I'm heading home." "Hey, wait up." I left Alex yelling behind me. Alex was pretty good at studying. Whenever the teacher asked, "Who knows the answer to this question?" he'd raise his hand. He wanted to be a class representative and participate in events, and since he was tall and athletic, he was popular with the girls. He always boasted about his wealthy family and had the latest toys and games. He'd invite a bunch of classmates to his house to play with them. I'd never been, but I heard they always had plenty of foreign snacks. I didn't mind that he enjoyed those things, but I wished he wouldn't try to impose them on me. Even after entering junior high, Alex was still in the same school. I actually got into a super famous private school, but this one's closer to home. He'd always say so. He really was one of the top students in the class. He was athletic too. Still tall, still handsome, and popular with the girls. He wanted to join the soccer team and kept pestering me to join too. "Hey, Ted. You should join the soccer team." "No, I'm not joining any teams. Soccer players are popular, you know? I don't need to be popular." "Why are you giving up?" "You're missing out on the fun of youth." "I'm not giving up. I'm focusing on household chores." "That's so lame. That kind of thinking is outdated. In the future, values that don't depend on gender will be mainstream." "You're so annoying. Just join the soccer team already." "Well, I'm off to visit my brother at the hospital." I left Alex shouting behind me and headed to the hospital with a change of clothes for my brother. When I started junior high, I stopped going to the after-school program. Instead, I would go to the hospital after school to change my brother's clothes, spend about an hour talking with him, and then head home. Mom was grateful because this allowed her to work longer hours. I worried that she might collapse from overwork. If mom collapsed, I'd be all alone. I wished she could rest a bit, even if it meant eating stir-fried bean sprouts every day. After visiting the hospital each day, I'd do the shopping on the way home. Once home, I'd do the housework and then study. Mom would come home around 8 p.m., and we'd eat dinner together, take a bath, and then I'd study some more before going to bed. Mom, just wait 3 more years. When I graduate from junior high, I'll start working right away. One day, I said this to her. But Mom was shocked and responded firmly. Ted, you must go to college. No way. You're too talented for that. But why? You're working so many hours every day. You'll collapse. It's normal for a parent to support their children. I'm doing this for you and Chris, and I can handle it. You have your own life, Ted. You can't just get by for the moment. Life is long, and in the real world, education often determines your opportunities. If you only have a junior high education, life will be tough. Understand? It's strange that your worth is determined by your education. But that's the world we live in. Even so, I'd rather work now for the present than go to college for the future. Please, do it for me, Ted. Go to college. We argued for a while, but in the end, I gave in. Usually, Mom would propose a compromise or respect my wishes, but this time she wouldn't budge. I agreed to borrow student loans and work part-time to attend high school and college. When I started junior high, I spent about an hour each evening with Chris. When he was feeling well, I helped him with his studies and talked about school. Chris was often hospitalized, but he dreamed of becoming an independent adult. To prepare him for the future, I told him about the outside world, which he found fascinating. Chris listened to all of it with wide eyes and a cheerful smile, clearly enjoying himself. Even the most trivial stories seemed fresh to Chris. For me, Chris and Mom were everything. No new game or fun activity mattered. In the fall of my first year in junior high, there was an election for the student council for the following year. Each class had to decide on one volunteered candidate and one nominated candidate. When deciding the nominated candidate, someone in the class said, "I think Ted should do it." I was stunned. What are they talking about? I thought there was no way I could handle such a significant role. At first, I wondered if it was a joke, but the person who nominated me seemed sincere. Everyone else seemed calm about it. I was the only one feeling nervous. Then one of Alex's female followers raised her hand and said, "I think Alex should do it." This led to a runoff between Alex and me. In the end, I won by 3 votes. Alex's glare was intense. Alex then ran for the student council through the volunteered candidate slot. Out of 5 classes, 10 candidates would be selected. Alex's supporters cheered with glittery fans. Candidates wore sashes and campaigned during morning and evening commutes. It felt like a festival. Alex's followers trailing behind him reminded me of fans following a pop star. I'm sure Alex will win. I'll make sure you get the most votes. We'll combine all our efforts. I'll ask the seniors in our club to vote too. As for me, I was too busy with household duties to campaign in the mornings and after school. I tried to get my homeroom teacher to let someone else take my place, but he said, "Campaigning is voluntary, so you'll be fine." So, I reluctantly participated. I worried that if I came in dead last, it would be embarrassing. Then came election day. The candidate and their sponsor each had a 2-minute time slot for speeches, and it was during that time that the sponsor spoke. Ted comes from a single-parent household. His brother has been hospitalized for a long time. Ted's mom has worked hard, taking on the role of both parents, and Ted has been handling household chores since elementary school. Despite this, he's always been the top student in his grade. Even in junior high, he remains at the top. I hadn't expected this. Although I hadn't hidden it and all my friends from elementary school knew, I never expected my private life to be exposed in front of everyone. I feared being mocked, but instead, the students responded with comments like, "That's amazing," and "He's incredible." I didn't do all this for praise. I did it so my beloved family could live better lives. So, I felt embarrassed. But it also made me happy to know some people were paying attention. Then came the results. No way. The election results were posted the next day, and I was surprised when I saw them. My name was at the top of the list. As a result, the student council for the new second-year students included me in first place, Alex in second, and 2 girls. Alex's female supporters seemed very disappointed, but some girls said, "It's nice to have serious Ted and cheerful Alex, it balances out." Having been elected, I decided to give my best in my student council duties. Committee activities took place during the 6th period every Wednesday. All students were part of some committee during this time. Those in the beautification committee cleaned, while those in the health committee checked the class first aid kits. At our junior high, there wasn't much need for additional student council activities in the mornings or after school, so I managed well. The only exception was raising and lowering the flags in the morning and evening, which took about 10 minutes. I served as a student council member in both my second and third years and went on to the top public high school in the county. There, I was the top student upon entry and was tasked with giving the opening address. Alex, who also entered the same school, seemed envious. I was sick on the day of the exam, so I missed first place by 2 points to Ted, he loudly claimed. I didn't know if it was true or not, but he always made such statements. Alex remained as conspicuous as ever, with his outstanding looks. In middle school, he continued to grow taller, and his body, strengthened by soccer, became well built. Even as a guy, I thought he seemed likely to be popular. In high school, I continued student council activities. While I didn't always hold the top spot academically, I consistently ranked in the top 3. Thinking about my future, I decided it would be best to have a profession. I aimed for medical school. But I knew medical school was expensive. Then Mom showed me a bank book. "This is for you." Mom had saved up money from Dad's life insurance and added to it every month. I was shocked, knowing how much she had scrimped and saved every month. "How could you save so much with Chris's medical expenses? Ted, both you and Chris are precious to your father and me. We wanted to provide equally for both of you." Mom had saved as much for me as she had spent on Chris's medical care. I cried. And I made a vow. I would become a doctor capable of saving lives, like my brothers. I entered the medical course in high school and studied even harder, aiming for medical school. Alex also aimed to enter medical school, so we were in the same class for 3 years. While managing student council duties, I studied every day. I woke up early, had a newspaper delivery job. After coming home, I would make breakfast and a packed lunch, then see my mother off. Then I studied before heading to school. After classes and supplementary lessons, I visited my brother in the hospital to change his clothes. I did the shopping on the way home, cooked dinner, and studied. When Mom came home, we had dinner together. Then I took a shower, studied at night, and went to bed. I kept up this routine. As a result, I received an A rating for my preferred national university's medical school. Then came the day of the entrance exam. What? Chris? It was early in the morning and we were still sleeping. A call came from the hospital. Our house was small, so you could hear the phone ring from any room. From my room, I heard Mom's voice filled with shock. Chris, who had been suffering from the flu for a few days, had developed complications and was in critical condition. The doctor said we should be prepared for the worst and advised us to call the family. But in our case, it was just Mom and me. Naturally, I got ready to go to the hospital. "You need to take your exam." Mom spoke firmly. I shook my head. "Are you kidding? What's more important, the exam or Chris? Let's go quickly." I spoke calmly. This might be the last time I could see Chris. There would be another exam next year. Chris might not even have another day. Mom pleaded with me, tears in her eyes. "Please, Ted. Chris's life is important, but so is yours." Seeing her cry, I sent her ahead. I lied to her. "Okay, I'll go take the exam." But instead, I took the bus right behind hers to the hospital. When Mom saw me, she scolded me like never before. "This is your life," she cried. But knowing we shouldn't make a scene in the hospital, she respected my decision. Chris was in the ICU, connected to many machines. He was unconscious, and Mom and I held his hands for a while. Chris's condition suddenly worsened, and he was taken to the treatment room. After several hours, Chris miraculously pulled through. When the doctor said he's past the critical stage, the exam time was long over. I knew that if you got an infectious disease, you could retake the exam, but it didn't apply to my situation since I wasn't the one who was sick. I had already prepared for this, so it was okay. I accepted it as something that couldn't be helped. When I returned to school on Monday, Mr. Johnson, my homeroom teacher, said, "It must have been tough. Alex found me in the morning and grabbed me by the collar. Why didn't you show up?" Alex also applied to the same local national university's medical school, so he knew that I hadn't shown up. I averted my eyes. I didn't understand why I was being blamed. Alex should be happy that one less rival showed up. Ignoring the deeper feelings behind Alex's actions, I made myself numb. "Let go, it hurts." That's all I said. "Are you kidding me? Did you run away? Were you too scared to face the exam?" "Yeah, that's right." It was easier to say that than to receive sympathy, so I answered that way. This only made Alex angrier. "Don't lie. Your brother survived, didn't he? You should have taken the exam, there was nothing you could have done at the hospital." So he knew the reason. I thought to myself. I knew painfully well that there was nothing I could have done at the hospital. But I wanted to be with my brother. There was no point explaining this to Alex. So I stayed silent. Alex, looking like he was about to cry, walked away at my lack of response. After graduation, since I hadn't applied for any private university as a backup, I had no choice but to graduate without a college acceptance. I hadn't applied for private universities because I couldn't afford the tuition. Despite my failure in the college entrance exam, I was asked to give the valedictory speech due to my excellent comprehensive grades and my role as a student council leader. Though I had doubts about whether I was the right person to do it, I fulfilled the request diligently. "Watch me. I will surpass you, no matter what." Alex said so before disappearing from my sight. 15 years have passed since graduation. I am now 33 years old. Today is the day of our class reunion. I took a taxi to the venue. The taxi stopped in front of the entrance. As I got out, I saw Alex stepping out of a foreign car with its parking lights on. I had no business with him, so I headed straight to the entrance. But then a voice called out from behind. "Wait up!" I turned around slowly. In front of me was Alex, looking his age. He was still tall and had a handsome face. His car was a sports car, and even though I wasn't knowledgeable about cars, I could tell it was a luxury vehicle. Noticing my gaze, Alex smiled smugly. "This? It's my car. Nice, isn't it?" "I'm not interested in cars," I said, heading toward the entrance. "Hey, it's been 15 years. Don't be so cold. Didn't you only graduate from high school? I'm a famous doctor now. Busy every day. Both at work and in my personal life. The ladies just can't get enough of me." Did Alex really go out of his way just to tell me this? "Alright, I'm going in," I said, heading to the hotel room for the first part of the reunion. Alex continued to shout from behind, but since he had parked his car on the street, he couldn't leave it unattended. Eventually, he probably parked in the hotel's parking lot and then came to the venue. Even at the first part of the reunion, I was busy avoiding Alex, who kept pestering me. The first party had ended. I stepped out of the venue. Waiting for me, once again, was Alex in front of his fancy car. He said, "Hey, Ted. Poor people will never be able to buy a car." He smirked arrogantly. I sighed. The sound of high heels approached from behind. Alex's eyes widened at the sight. "Whoa, she's gorgeous," he said, covering his mouth with his hand. "President Wagner, I've reserved a luxury hotel for the after-party," I told her. "Thanks, Karen." Alex was stunned by this interaction. "President Wagner?" My secretary, Karen, looked at Alex with a puzzled expression. She had a striking figure, a small face, big round eyes, and long, glossy hair. Everyone passing by couldn't help but stare at Karen. Although I haven't met many celebrities, Karen is often told she could easily blend in with them. "Is this person an acquaintance of yours?" I answered. Oh, just a former classmate. I see. I apologize for the late introduction. I'm Karen, Mr. Wagner's secretary. Karen bowed politely. Alex was frozen in place, awestruck by her beauty. Karen, ignoring Alex's reaction, gestured toward the waiting limousine. The car is ready. Please, go ahead. Thank you. Let's head to the after-party venue. Karen and I walked toward the limousine. As we walked away, Alex called out, "Hey, Ted. Wait up." Karen and I turned around together. Since the driver was waiting, I didn't want to spend much time talking, but there was no choice when he shouted, "You, with a gorgeous secretary, a limo, and a driver, you're the president? How did a poor high school grad like you end up like this?" I sighed softly. "Well, I can't stay long, so I'll keep it brief." I began to explain what happened after graduation. My mother, Emily, worked at a general hospital. There, she met a German doctor. He's now my stepfather. Apparently, he fell in love with my mom at first sight. He had remained single but fell for my mom just before he turned 50. They got married. My brother Chris, my mom, and I all moved to Germany. I attended a local university there. Chris, who needed specialized medical care, received surgery from my stepfather and recovered. The surgery would have cost tens of thousands of dollars, but my stepfather took care of it. With financial worries and concerns about my brother out of the way, I focused on my studies. I already had a strong foundation, so it wasn't too difficult. While studying German, I threw myself into my studies as a university student. During my time there, I started my own business. In America, I had aimed to become a doctor, but I discovered a passion for running a medical device company. The business took off, and acquiring other business, it has now become a group company. I work in Germany as the CEO of a company with thousands of employees. After hearing this, Alex said, "Ted, no way." "Yeah, that's right. My last name changed to a German one after my mom remarried." It's understandable that Alex, as a medical professional, knew about my company but didn't connect it with Ted Wagner. I now have a German surname. Anyway, I have to go. If you're coming to the after party, I'll see you there. I watched Alex stomp his feet in frustration through the rearview mirror as the car started moving. Karen and I are planning to get married next month. We've been dating for 2 years. I wanted to propose earlier, but the company kept me so busy that I couldn't find the time for my personal life, which I feel bad about. Starting next year, my brother will also begin working at our company gradually. Although he still has some concerns about his health, we're arranging things so he can work flexibly. I want to continue providing useful medical devices to many people. And as the head of my family, I also want to ensure my family's happiness. He used to draw manga all the time at school. Even during breaks, he'd cling to his desk, and he was in the manga club too. Total geek. His life revolved around his desk and the world of manga. Oh, you guys are a little put off? Don't mean it that way. And I'm glad you're interested in him. I was looking at David, who was talking with a grin, or rather, I was looking behind him. I could see the bride approaching quickly. "Hey, there you are. Long time no see," David said as he approached me. He was a classmate from high school. What was he doing here? He was smiling, but I wasn't happy at all. "I've missed you. I heard you hang out here often, so I came by. I was at my usual cafe. You haven't changed at all. You've always been a bookworm, but you're still a loner, surfing the internet?" David looked at my laptop on the table and grinned. "Meeting someone?" "No, I came to see you." Saying that, he sat in the open seat in front of me. "I wanted to give you this. It's for my wedding. You have to come. I've invited all my classmates. We even planned the after party. So let's all have a good time together after all these years. Don't be messing around. You have to come. We all agreed to attend each other's weddings and funerals, right? It's a full course meal at a first-class hotel. You wouldn't even have a chance unless it was for a wedding. The after party will be fun because the bride's friends will be there, and since she is a flight attendant, There will be a lot of glamorous female guests. After saying everything he wanted, David left. I didn't even feel like opening the envelope and just sat there. My name is Sean. I'm 25 years old. David was my classmate, but we were never close. To be honest, I disliked him. He was smart. His father was a lawyer and pushed him to follow the same path, so he was always busy with tutors and cram school. But with no choice in his future and a strict academic schedule, he must have been under a lot of stress. I often became his stress outlet. He intentionally dropped my lunchbox during lunchtime. He forced his class duties on me. He borrowed my notebook and never returned it to me. The list was endless. I often ended up as teacher's assistant. No one wanted the job, so they pushed each other to do it. At those times, he would successfully push everything on me. Being teacher's assistant was just a fancy term for a convenient handyman. The teacher would call me to distribute handouts. In the classroom, the teacher would instruct me to collect homework assignments from the students. He would annoy me by saying he didn't get it, or make me wait by saying he would file it later. In short, he was a messy man. But since he had good grades, the teachers went easy on him. In a school where academics were prioritized, smart guys were popular. Teenage girls didn't mind his difficult personality, they even thought it was good because he was not too perfect. After looking through the wedding invitation, I contacted Mike. Mike was also a classmate and often supported me when David targeted me. If only David weren't around, school would have been fun. Because of him, the bad memories outweighed the good ones. I saw David today. For his wedding, right? Unbelievable. He used to look down on us with his elite attitude as the law school student. And now he reaches out to us only at a time like this. So, are you going? I wanted to avoid it, but all the friends I was close to were going. They were actually waiting for my call so we could go together. They seemed to worry that David might not invite me alone. This is a great chance to see everyone for a while. If you're not feeling it, you can leave early. Both of us had been busy with work and hadn't seen each other in a while. Weddings and after parties wouldn't be the place to talk to the groom personally so much. We decided to attend together. Outside the cafe window, students walked by. In high school, I used to draw manga all the time. I was even in the manga club. David was not only a good student, but he was also good at sports. I was called a pussy and gloomy for staying in my seat even during lunch break. I thought I could just attend out of obligation and then never see him again. That's what I believed. It was a grand wedding ceremony on the day. 2 generations of lawyers, father and son, would be elite in the eyes of society. David must have been proud of it. Our table was filled with high school friends, and we enjoyed ourselves without paying much attention to the groom. None of us were married yet. We were interested in the ceremony, but also wondered if it had to be so elaborate. The bride and groom frequently left for changing dresses. From a classic wedding dress and white tuxedo to the colorful evening dress and matching formal tuxedo, and even changed to beautiful kimono dresses. They looked like dress-up dolls. During those breaks, professional musicians played the piano, violin, or sang, but we hardly listened. Normally, their friends and family would entertain the guests or even themselves, but since the host spent so much money, we don't have to worry about it. Mike chuckled. After all, the main focus of the ceremony on that day was the bride and the groom. There was a cake cutting, a rice shower, and a bouquet toss. Their frequent dress changings made the ceremony last over hours, and honestly, we were getting bored. We moved to the venue for the after party, but then had to wait over an hour for it to start. The bride and groom hadn't arrived yet. They must have been busy greeting family members and changing clothes. However, some of our friends had come from out of town. They were anxious about the end time. When it finally started, the party was dull, a far cry from the wedding. People were sparse and the party games were not exciting. Originally there were about 40 people, but 1 or 2 left during the wait. The remaining crowd was mostly women. I didn't want to participate in the games, so I just watched. The prizes were unimpressive, and the atmosphere was awkward. Food was limited to snacks and soft drinks. We were fine since we had just had the full course meal, but those who only came for the after party must have been disappointed. Moreover, technical issues prevented the prepared movie from playing, which was a disaster. We weren't interested in David's movie and thought it would be better to end quickly since it started late, but the bride, Lisa, was visibly upset. We were planning to slip out quietly and go for a drink. David, probably trying to salvage the awkward atmosphere, suddenly grabbed the microphone and started speaking. "Thanks for coming to our after party. You all came here looking to meet someone, right? I hope you find happiness like we did. Let me introduce each of the guys here, so ladies, pay attention." He started introducing each person one by one. I had a bad feeling. What could he possibly introduce about me? We hadn't kept in touch at all. He introduced his lawyer friends and college buddies first. When it came to us from high school, he listed everyone as company employees, adding titles like soccer team captain or student council member from those days. Finally, it was my turn. The last one to be introduced is Sean. This guy spent all his school days drawing manga. He'd cling to his desk even during breaks. And he was in the manga club, a total geek. He hated PE and wasn't good at sports. His life revolved around his desk and the world of manga. That's the kind of classmate he was. Oh, you guys are a little put off? Don't mean it that way, and I'm glad you're interested in him. It's not like he's a shut-in. He made it out here today, and he goes to Café Salon, too. Right, Sean? I was looking at David grinning and talking, or rather, I was looking behind him. I could see Lisa approaching quickly. And that was the moment David noticed her presence and turned around. Surprisingly, Lisa's slap burst into David's face. It wasn't just one shot, it was 4 round shots back and forth. Caught off guard, David staggered and leaned against the table with the food. Lisa picked up the microphone that fell from David's hand. A murmur spread through the crowd. "What are you doing? You should be asking yourself that." Holding the microphone, Lisa began to speak to us almost like a campaign speech, half yelling. "Everyone, can you believe that I knew nothing about today's ceremony? I don't know if it was a secret bridal or a surprise, but I feel like I'm the only one who was set up, even involving my family. The dresses, the kimono, the bouquet, none of it was my taste. Even the message to parents was not something I came up with on my own. It was all staged. This is supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime event. Yet everything was decided without my input. I was about to lose my mind with anger. But since you all came, dealing with outfits and gifts and all, I endured. There are my parents' work associates, bosses, and other important people here. So I thought I could just get through the day. But I'm done. I can't marry this man. Lisa, what are you talking about? For the wedding, you spent your parents' money extravagantly, but for the after-party, you rented this tiny room and left everything irresponsibly to others because you didn't want to spend your own money. The food and drinks are also cheap, and it's obvious you're trying to keep it within the budget. It's incredibly rude to the guests. And I've been listening to you insult people, calling them geek and shut-ins. Is that a jab at my sister? If you can openly mock guests, you definitely treat family even worse. I can't stand anything about this. I now know what she meant. It was about Lisa's message to her parents. In front of both families, the MC read out the message in a theatrical voice. There was a part of it in which she referred to her sister. I was wondering too if the part about respecting and loving her little sister who has become a shut-in as a big sister as much as ever should be read out at a place like this. Perhaps that message was a template edited to fit her family situation. David likely did it haphazardly, but it must have been unbearable for her family. No wonder she was angry. Elite lawyer, huh? Aren't lawyers supposed to fight injustice and help people with the power of law? Instead, you mock the weak. You have the knowledge but not the heart. Everyone, this wedding is off. I can't live with a man like this. Laugh at me all you want, but this is the end. In her puffy skirt, dressed like a pretty doll, the bride made her bombshell announcement. We were frozen, not knowing how to react. David slowly stood up, looking stunned as he listened, then spat out, "What are you talking about now?" Despite this, she just get out of here. I never want to see your face again. she said firmly into the microphone, and the groom left with a click of his tongue. Wait a minute, what about us? The bride was crying. Lisa, having said her piece, sighed deeply. Me and Mike, sitting with her between us, quietly glanced at each other and then looked down again. Oh, what's this? Suddenly, the bride noticed the gift bag at my feet. Oh, it's just a sample. Oh my gosh. I'm a fan of Karen. Why are there samples here? Is this going to be sold? Hey, look at this. It's a sample. I was frozen by the sudden turn of events. Her voice drew the bride's friends over in a crowd. Lisa took the microphone again. Everyone, are you hungry? Order whatever you like for delivery. I'll cover it. Don't worry about the gift money, I'll return it. Unlike him, I'm not cheap. Let's have some drinks and enjoy ourselves. With that, the breakup party began, with the MC running out to buy drinks and various deliveries arriving, turning it into a lively event. Getting back to the point, I draw webcomics under the pseudonym Blue Moon. In school, I used to draw fantasy stories, but as I ran out of ideas, I started drawing stories based on real life. My series was called Karen's Life Theater, featuring the same main character each time. Karen, a woman in her 30s, was the protagonist, and her profession changed with each storyline. She got caught in various injustices and absurdities, and unlike in real life, she stood up to her bosses and seniors, saying what needed to be said. This character resonated with women dealing with life's stresses. It started with Nurse Karen in a hospital, then Bride Karen dealing with in-laws, female office worker Karen getting bossed around at work, and now Flight Attendant Karen. Elderly patient hitting on nurses, crazy helicopter parents, a mother-in-law throwing away the meal that her son's wife was cooking. Airline passengers demanding to change seats. I had 3 older sisters, the eldest was a nurse, and the second was a flight attendant. The whole event that Karen was involved in were true stories I got from my own family. The young wife dealing with her tough mother-in-law was modeled after my mom. When I was listening to their stories and choosing the topics, I realized that talking was a stress reliever and that empathy was a powerful thing for people. My sisters, and especially my mom, would recount events in great detail, even from before I was born. My mom emphasized how indifferent my dad, or her husband, was during those times, which always made me uneasy, because I never saw my mother as someone's wife. But the first-hand, real-life content resonated with women in similar situations, growing my fan base. The world is full of injustices. In response, Karen clearly shouted out loud that something was no good, which seemed to clear the minds of those watching. Last year, in collaboration with a grocery store, Karen's Lunchbox series were released. Items included No More Overtime Bento, Too Much Odd Job Sushi Roll, and Don't Be Unreasonable Rice Ball, each with catchy slogans and the characters printed on them. Targeting female office workers, the calorie labeling was very precise, as well as the nutritional content that was missing. The TV commercials, reminiscent of each of the products, featured Eat Up and Hang In There, girls, and concluded with Karen's cheering. Megan, the youngest of my 4 older sisters, played a big role in promoting Karen. Megan and I were a year apart, and we were close to each other the most. When I was dealing with David, Megan was also struggling with classmates at school. Eventually, she stopped attending school and rarely left her room. My mom, struggling in her vulnerable position as a daughter-in-law, believed that relationships that could be avoided should be avoided. So she did not force Megan to attend school, but encouraged her to do what she was willing to work on. Megan chose crafts. She sewed clothes for dolls. Although it looked harder than making clothes for people to me, Megan skillfully used fabric scraps to create one-of-a-kind outfits. There was a story behind Megan's dedication to this hobby. There was a 7-year age gap between Megan and the eldest sister. And there was even a 5-year gap with the second sister. We often received hand-me-downs from our older sisters, and the doll Megan inherited was well-worn, with messy hair, a dirty face, and missing shoes. The dolls were in terrible shape, and I felt sorry for Megan, even though I was a little kid too, when she was told to play with them. However, this childhood sadness became Megan's motivation. Encouraged by our mom to pursue whatever she wanted, Megan cleaned the doll's face with nail polish remover and created the unique Karen doll. She matched the outfits to the manga I drew, adding accessories and recreating scenes in puppet shows, which she shared online. Gradually, she began to stage Karen's daily life in a way that only a woman could understand. Moreover, our older sisters joined in, acting out period cramps or dressing up to go out from messy rooms, creating videos that resonated with many. Women of all ages have experienced playing with dolls at least once. So the nostalgia and realism of the subject matter probably made it easy for them to take to it. This venture led Megan to connect with shop owners and doll makers, eventually starting her own online shop, Karen's Boutique. What Lisa found at my feet was a sample of Karen's second product line. Between the wedding and the after party, I had a meeting with product planners in the hotel lobby. Then they gave me a sample. Karen's quote stickers. These were vinyl holders to be hung from bag handles. They featured Karen's face and catchy slogans printed on them. One destination, even if many paths. There's no younger day than today. If you need me, let me know. I will help you. I'm happy because of me. It's fun because of you. Knowledge is treasure, not just what you learn in school. Leaving on time is what makes a good employee. Dear customer, unreasonable demand for apology is a crime of coercion. No photos allowed, even if they're cute. All these phrases were crowdsourced online. There are various themes for Karen's quote stickers, some for boosting confidence, some for preventing harassment, and some for students preparing for exams. Each one aims to encourage the person carrying it. While these might not change real life, my intention was for them to serve as a brief moment of relief. This is great. The sticker Lisa held said, "Better alone than in bad company." There's no point in forcing yourself. It's my life, why should I care about appearances or what others think? I'll give it to you. I hope this will help you in your future life. Oh, I want one too. I submitted a catchphrase, but mine wasn't chosen. Before I knew it, the area was filled with women dressed up for the after party, turning the scene into something like an autograph signing event. They were flight attendants, so they were probably more realistic to them. They even started offering more story ideas, inviting me for interviews. I told them I'd get in touch later to keep things manageable at the moment. You've got some nerve, I heard you kicked me out and had an autograph session, right? David was leaning back in his chair across from me. He arrived at the cafe an hour late. It wasn't that I wanted to meet him. He insisted on it, so I reluctantly waited. It had been about 2 weeks since the wedding. I hadn't been in contact with David at all since then. Yet here he was, accusing me right off the bat. I didn't kick you out, nor did I hold an autograph session. Don't lie to me. I heard you were the center of attention as soon as I left. If you say so, you should have stayed until the end. You abandoned the guests who came to celebrate you. The reception ran late. And the bride and groom arrived even later, dragging into the evening. Everyone was stuck with just snacks and soft drinks. The games couldn't start because there weren't enough people, the sound system was awful, there was no video, and the MC was terrible. Even Lisa was complaining. Don't talk about Lisa like you know her. Well, she's not your bride anymore, right? I can only call her by name. So, what's this all about? I'm telling you to stay away from Lisa. I haven't done anything. I heard you're trying to get close to her under the guise of work because she is beautiful, once working as the flight attendant. From whom? That's none of your business. I wondered why I had ever been afraid of this guy. David's bluster and bullying had no real basis. Back then, our teacher, Johnson, always favored him, so I gave up. I thought I couldn't win no matter what I said. He was just a student with good grades, nothing inside. I won't forgive Lisa. Who does she think I am, ruining my wedding? Do you know how much social credibility I've lost? I'll make her pay. I don't know how you can say that. What did you say? I sighed. The angrier and hotter David got, the more disgusted and cold I got. As a lawyer, you might find plenty of reasons to corner her, but she was the woman you wanted to marry, right? Shouldn't you be looking at what made her unhappy and what went wrong? You're supposed to be a lawyer. Finding mitigating circumstances even for those who've committed crimes. Yet you don't even show sympathy for the bride you hurt. You can't even acknowledge the fact that you hurt her. Are you trying to lecture me? She was angry because of your thoughtless words and selfish actions. You didn't listen to her and did whatever you wanted. You've always been like that, saying whatever you want without caring about how others feel. You're still living your life not knowing that it's not a good feeling, not only for the person you're talking to, but also for the people around you who are listening to you. Shut up. I came here to tell you. In the end, you're an incredibly smart guy, admired by teachers, and that's why you became a lawyer with extensive knowledge. But that's all you are. You can't empathize with people or adjust to their feelings. Suddenly, water splashed in my face, dripping from my cheek. Don't get cocky just because I'm listening quietly. Amazing. Even someone who knows the law can't control their temper. This would be assault, right? And if I catch a cold from this, it could be considered battery. I pointed at my wet phone on the table. If this phone breaks, you might be looking at property damage charges. You used to do this kind of stuff in high school too, didn't you? Back then. You didn't know the law, so you acted recklessly. But knowing the law isn't enough. Even lawyers lose their temper. Suddenly, a woman standing beside me offered a handkerchief. Lisa. What are you doing here? Did you guys set me up? Don't be ridiculous. How self-centered can you be? I was just meeting someone else here. I was sitting in the back. David turned around hastily. Behind him was a meeting room separated by a glass wall. The flight attendants from the other day were watching us. See, it was a setup. I was supposed to meet them here originally. That's why I first told you that today was not available due to another matter. But you insisted. So I agreed to meet you at the same place, just earlier. It's you who showed up an hour late and yet, no apology for being late. You call yourself a professional while you look down on others, calling them geek or something. How about taking a good look at your own behavior? Has anyone, even one person, complimented you on what you've done this time around? David stood up. Oh, running away again? You always pushed off unpleasant tasks onto others. Fine, go ahead. I didn't have any business with you anyway. Before you go, let me tell you something. I was not tricked by him anyway, and it has nothing to do with the breakup with you. I divorced you because I don't love you anymore. Got it? I can't stand the sight of you, David. If you want to sue me, go ahead. Your threats have been overheard by the staff at the venue. There's plenty of evidence. Honestly, it was a very emotionally distressing day for me. For a moment, David and Lisa glared at each other, but David dropped his gaze and left. Originally, the wedding was supposed to be 3 months later. Lisa had been going to the spa to prepare herself, and her colleagues supposed to take a day off on that day. But in a surprise move, she was suddenly turned into a bride at a hotel meeting for her birthday celebration. This was entirely David's idea. At first, even her family was against it. But it was an off-season for weddings, which made it cheaper. Having already received funds from his parents, David decided to move the date to save money. He staged a grand event, dragging everyone into his scheme to have the wedding on her birthday. On the surface, it seemed like a thoughtful gesture from the groom to surprise the bride, so everyone cooperated. But for the bride, it was a complete disaster. She didn't get to choose her dress, hairstyle, or any part of the ceremony. The wedding was supposed to be a special moment for the bride. Her friends had concerns. But it was ultimately the couple's decision, so they kept quiet. The frequent dress changes were special arrangement for the bride by David. But she seemed to be filled with humiliation as she had to keep laughing as she was forced to change dresses she didn't like. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she said every time she walked out of the venue. But David was forcing his way through with the same selfishness as ever. She continued to hold out, at least until the ceremony was over. She really wanted to cancel the after party. It was quite common for brides to be too tired for wedding. She wanted to cancel, even if she had to lie. But since David had planned to skim off some of the event fees, he insisted on bringing her to the after party. The two had a dispute, which delayed their arrival. Lisa, determined to endure until the end, finally exploded when she saw David mocking the guests in public. I was just caught in the middle and neither tricked her nor caused the breakup. And yet, making accusations against me was enough to make me want to sue him for defamation too. After David left, I moved to the meeting room where the flight attendants were waiting and began my interview, discussing their experiences, my eldest sister's similar job, and merchandise ideas. Despite their job requiring constant smiles, they were working in the confined space of an airplane with no escape. There was no right way to work in the customer service industry. One passenger might praise them for being attentive, while another might complain about being overly intrusive. Crying children, medical emergencies, bad weather. Every flight seemed to bring a new set of challenges. Delays weren't their fault, but complaints came straight at them. Moreover, behind the scenes, they had to pay more attention to their senior colleagues than they did to the passengers. Rumors traveled faster than jets. And they had to pay attention to other colleagues' feelings and sometimes took the blame for others' mistakes to keep the peace. Since they worked with different teams on each flight, they constantly had to rebuild relationships, which was exhausting. My sister often shared these kind of stories with me, making me feel sorry for them even when I see smiling flight attendants now. She used to be shocked by senior colleagues bad-mouthing passengers and co-workers. But now she was so used to it that she said it would be a disaster if she started doing it too. My sister's story like that made them sympathize with her, and then it would come back to me even more. I thought that it is because of this communication that I end up socializing with people and I draw manga. Nothing stabilized emotions like empathy. Lisa, too, decided to quit her job, fed up with the drama among the women. Despite her dream of joining the airline, she was filled with frustration, prompting her parents to suggest marriage. They introduced her to an elite lawyer through their connections, thinking it was a trustworthy profession. However, the secret wedding and subsequent handling of things showed such a lack of sincerity that even her parents were disappointed and apologized to her. Fortunately, they hadn't officially registered their marriage yet. Mike was thrilled to have met David's college friend at the after-party, a lawyer, which broadened his network. Apparently, David was the same way in college. Despite attending for 6 years, only 2 friends were invited, one of whom left during the long wait. The other guy was looking bored, so Mike struck up a conversation with him while they ate delivery food. He was also a lawyer's son, attending in place of his father. It seemed that David only had relationships like that. Recently, through Mike's introduction, the 3 of us had drinks together and I decided to create a story featuring Karen as a lawyer, incorporating legal education. David served as the basis for the villains in my comics. Thinking about how David would say or do certain things provided inspiration for me to create characters. Thinking about it, maybe all my hard work back then was paying off a little. Given the hardships he caused me, I would make good use of them. Lisa's sister, who had been troubled, changed after meeting Megan. She watched Megan's videos and became interested in the props which were used there, eventually working on making them herself. She particularly enjoyed creating miniature food, insisting on knowing the real thing, so Lisa took her out to try sweets and buy materials, slowly helping her become more active. Recently, she also started selling her artwork in Megan's online store. And the income she was able to generate seemed to have boosted her confidence. Megan planned to support her until she could manage her own shop. Half a year after the chaotic wedding, Lisa now works at a hotel front desk. While Lisa introduced her sister to Megan and I introduced Mike to a flight attendant who was a former colleague of hers, Lisa and I ended up dating. The hotel, frequented by many international guests, suits her well with her language skills and refined service training. It's less hectic than being a flight attendant, and the clientele is generally better, making her job more comfortable. However, every field has its own David. And then, this guy insisted that making him stand at the reception desk showed poor service. He claimed he was a regular and should be attended to in his room. He acted like a celebrity, but turned out to be just a rude old man. It was so disappointing. Lisa kept talking. As I listened to her, I mentally recreated her story with Karen. It must be an occupational hazard. So, he asked me to come to his room, so I asked to Chris, my supervisor, to come with us. But the guy got angry, insisting only I came along. Then Jason, the manager, quickly had 2 senior staff members on break wait by his room. We all opened the door together and said, "Please enjoy your stay," before closing the door. Oh my, you never know what might happen if you go alone. You have to be careful. Hey, there is a cafe nearby that serves delicious cakes. Let's go. Even though we just had a meal and I was full, women always seem to crave sweets. On a sweets tour with her sister, Lisa became obsessed with the allure of sweets. I've been taken there often, too, so I have more chances to eat something sweet. Eventually, I'm going to have to draw Karen struggling to lose weight.